Chari here, and today I'm going to be making this lucky charm card. It's a great St. Patrick's Day card, but it's great for all year round too. I'm going to be using the Lucky Charm stamp set along with the coordinating dies, and I'm going to be doing some emboss resist techniques with distress inks and some distress ink blending. So I'm just going to run my anti-static powder tool across a piece of Nina Solar White cardstock here. And I'm going to be stamping out my images with Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink, and using some clear embossing powder, which is what is in that little tub to the left there. So I'm just going to stamp out a whole bunch of these, but I'm going to be putting the embossing powder on as I go so I can see where I've already stamped, because it's really hard to see that ink because it's clear. But if I put the powder on, I can at least see where I've been. So I've stamped them all out and added the powder, and then I'm just going to heat that up with my heat tool here until everything melts. So I've got some Twisted Citron distress ink here and a little ink blending tool. And I'm just going to put some ink right on each clover. I'm going to kind of start in the middle and kind of do a circular motion out towards the outside. And I realize I have stars on here too, and I realize I really don't want to get my green ink on my stars, so I'm going to take a minute to cut those away from the piece of paper. So the stars are on that piece there. And then I'm going to just go over each one. I just kind of fast forwarded here, and I've got little ones and I've got big ones, and I'm just getting a good coat of that Twisted Citron all over it. Kind of want it lighter on the outside edges, and I want to make sure I've covered the whole embossed image. Now I have the perfectly named Lucky Clover distress ink here, and I've got a little fingertip blending sponge, and I'm using this just because I don't want to cover the whole thing. I just want to kind of cover the center and leave that Twisted Citron on the outside parts of these leaves of the clovers. So because it's such a small area, that's why I'm using this little fingertip blending tool. It's even harder to do on the little bitty ones here. And then I'm going to go back with the Twisted Citron and just blend it out a little more and make sure those two colors sort of blend together. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the stars, and I've got the mustard seed distress ink here and a blending tool, and just doing the same thing, just going in circular motions and covering the whole star. So I'm going to be cutting these out with the coordinating dies, so it doesn't matter that I'm going past the lines because it's all going to be cut out, but I do want to make sure I do cover up the lines so that the outside of the die cut is also yellow on the outside of my embossed image. So I'm just getting a good coat of the mustard seed all over all these. And now I'm going to go in with the fossilized amber. I'm going to use the fingertip tool again, and I'm just doing kind of one side of it. They're a little too small to do the center out like I did with the clovers, but I can go to one side and still give it a little variation in color. Now I'm going to use the coordinating dies to cut these out. So I'm just going to tack them down with some low tack tape and run it through my die cut machine. Now I've got the Wild Rose ink here, and I've just got a 4-bar size card base that I've cut from some cream colored cardstock, and I'm just going to stamp my sentiment in that Wild Rose ink. I'm stamping it to the side because I'm going to kind of have these little items here kind of flow from the top left corner down towards the bottom right. And now I'm just going to play with my pieces and arrange them in a way in which I find pleasing. And it took me a little while, I have to be honest, but at least when you have these little pieces here, you can play around with the arrangement. Once I figured out where I wanted everything, then I can go back and put everything down. I'm putting all of the clovers down with some foam adhesive. This one I put down with like a thicker one, and then I'm going to use some of the thin foam squares for these smaller ones. For the stars, I'm just going to adhere those straight down to the card using some liquid glue, and I'm just picking them up with my tweezers, and this way my fingers aren't in the way. especially because they're pretty small. I can see where I'm placing it better with the tweezers. Now I use some of Lucy's Little Things sequins here, and I've just pulled out a couple sequins that I like. I have this one that's like a bunch of greens, so I've got some clears and some iridescents and a couple greens, and I've just placed those where I want them to go, and I'm just using my Ranger Multi-Matte Medium with a very fine tip applicator and placing those with my tweezers as well. Now for the finishing touch, I've got a clear sparkle brush pen from Crafter's Companion. This is a Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. I just got this, but I really like the sparkle in it. It's a lot like Wink of Stella, but not as silver, much more clear and iridescent. So I'm just adding some of that sparkle to all my little images. And then there is the final card. You can see it shimmer when the light hits it just perfectly. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.